Oh, there we go. Roberts, Andrius. Hey guys, I know. I think we're the only thing keeping you between between this and beers. So we'll try to go quickly. I'd love to start out by you guys just telling us in 1 minute about yourself and what you're doing, what your company does. So start with Roberts.
Sure. We'll start off. So I'm from TWINO. I'm leading the strategic development of TWINO Investment Platform. So what TWINO does basically is we are bringing together the borrowers, people that are in need of money, and the other side that have the capital to invest in our case, in loans. So basically, those are premium returns for Europeans. Most of them come from Germany, also reasonable part from UK, and then there's a split between European countries. So that's the main goal that we're trying to achieve, to make investments simple and understandable for regular users.
How many of you know Revolut? Good. So do I need still? Can we save that minute?
There's a few people who don't.
Let's do it. So Revolut is just financial solution, right? It's an app and the card, and you speak with your card through the app, and you control your financial, freedom, if you like, and the finances through the app, right? It's a nicely built app. Those who have it, those who don't have it, just grab it.
That's how you're getting your cost of acquisition so low, right? Just
exactly. Attending these events, having fun, and then give away cards. Going forward, we are getting into business. So we have Revolut for Business product. We go into crypto, so we allow you to have fiat currencies and crypto and exchange those within 1 second, and so on. You will hear a lot of other news, guys, so thanks for your loyalty. Yeah, that's the end of our panel. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lamine. I started off working in fintech like around about 5 years ago. I started off building, I was the head of product at number 26, built this, then left the company with the product team, built a company that was called Cookies. We were the first one who enabled real-time peer-to-peer transaction from bank account to bank account in Germany and throughout Europe. Then we sold the company to Klarna, and ever since we're part of Klarna, Klarna is a big company, having more than 60 million customers around Europe, more than 70,000 merchants, and we are building the peer-to-peer platform for them. And basically what we do is you can sign up to Wavy in less than a minute. You can connect any bank account, including Revolut or whatever you have, to Wavy. And then when you want to send money or request money from your friends, you simply generate a payment link. You send it via any social channel. The person can pay you back or can redeem the payment without having to sign up, which is a true value proposition for our users across Europe. And it's branded and built for the millennial use case. So it's a lot of gamification in it. It's a lot of emotional attachment that our users have towards our product. So that's that.
Cool. So the topic of conversation is disruption in finance. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Why don't we start with Lamine? What do you think the world looks like in finance? What do you think banking looks like 10 years from now?
So that's a very good question, and it's a very open question. So I think that any answer will hopefully somehow be correct. I think something that we've already seen over the last years is like payments are becoming commodity, including peer-to-peer payments. You see like Facebook launching peer-to-peer payments in France and in the UK, and they're going to move forward and so forth. So for us, seeing that peer-to-peer and like payments in general become a commodity, banking has to and will become invisible. So at the end of the day, for me, like the future of banking actually resides into the fact who will own the identity of a customer. And everything that is around customer identification, KYC process, and so forth is actually the one who has the most customers and who has identified all of these customers and who is capable of using this data to actually transform it into a platform where you can just take your data and move from one bank account to another bank account and use all these different services. This is where payments and banking will go. And I already said it, like I have a dear friend in New York, and she called me the other day, and like I just saw the experience on FaceTime directly, and she paid using Apple Pay in the States, using a card. And it was just magnificent to see like the concept of invisibility, how it's been used and adopted by Apple. So if you just take you want to pay a taxi, you just look at your phone, you make beep, and that's it. And this is what I mean by payments will become invisible, and banking as well.
Okay, Andrius, so a different question actually.
Because you just described PSD2 in the first.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the question for you is actually, what does banking look like for Revolut 2 years from now? You don't have a product roadmap for 10 years. So what's coming up?
Yes. so it relates to the point what I just said, that we are launching a new version of the app basically 1.5 times a week.
Yeah.
Right? So it's always a lot of stuff there. So what we want to build really truly international financial tool for any international individual. There is a lot of people traveling nowadays. Nomad trend is there, etc. And there is no solution apart of Revolut and what we are building that within the second you can issue your banking account in any country in the world. We want to achieve that it would just, you go out of the plane in Australia, you just landed for your job, you want to get paid in Australian banking format, you just press the button and you got your Australian. You basically saved weeks of work of going to Australian banks and issuing, getting that. So we are going that route. We're also going the Revolut for Business route, which then would allow us to do a lot of things like merchant accounts. So right now, if somebody is paying with a plastic, right, with Visa or MasterCard, the merchant, either online merchant or offline merchant, incurs a lot of costs. Sometimes it reaches 2–3% of total costs, accepting plastic. We want to enable Revolut user coming to online first, then offline down the road, to click the button, enter the phone number, confirm it on the app, and have the product delivered. And the merchant would save 10, if not more, times of their collection fees. So these are the initial initiatives. We're also launching investment product and any other product that you think that international citizen would need in their daily life. So really, that's the 2-year plan.
Cool. So it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of stuff internationally. Actually, so Robert, tell me about TWINO. I know you guys started in Latvia and moved internationally. What was that process like? What would you recommend to other Latvian entrepreneurs thinking about going abroad?
Yeah, so what the other guys are mentioning here as well, so it's always about simplicity for the end user. And what we did, we sort of understood that Baltics is a relatively small market. We have, 6 million people here. So if you want to build really meaningful and big and relevant business, you have to go also abroad, right? Because the market that you're addressing initially is quite small. And that's why we went to the markets that are also bigger ones. Like we are operating in Russia, basically lots of emerging markets, Russia, Kazakhstan, Poland, Latvia, and the investing side, what we offer to our investors. So the investors come from Europe, as I mentioned, and they have really simple experience where can they invest in their money into something really understandable, like in a loan to a private individual, right? And that's sort of that we're trying to deliver to the end user, to make investing process easy to understand and to give the value to the end user, not to make overcomplicated project that we have seen previously for decades back there. So,
okay, so similar question. What's in the future? What's ahead for you guys for TWINO and just in general P2P?
Yeah, so as we see, the P2P industry is really booming, especially Latvian companies. We are now the biggest ones in continental Europe, so we are leading the way here. So it's a sort of Latvian success story that we have here. So that's really great, and we are trying to build something in this direction, but we are also looking at different opportunities. I don't know, guys are talking about banking license. We are also thinking about something like that. We have tried different perspectives for the investing experience. Now it's P2P. Maybe it will be something else as well. So we are just thinking about the best use cases for the end user. So I really believe that the P2P concept, either in investing or payments or whatever, it will be the one that will serve the customers.
So the topic of the panel is disruption in finance. So we could, of course, we couldn't skip talking about blockchain. So I'd like to ask you guys, each of you, how you guys think about blockchain in your own use cases. I think you could see pretty clear use cases for each of your companies. What are you guys doing, and what's in the future?
Well, I guess you should start. You already have something in the crypto space, not necessarily blockchain as far as I know, but at least in the crypto space.
Yeah, it's in crypto space. However, we didn't go into that, providing the wallets and providing that functionality. But for the majority of users, it's exactly. So let me phrase it in a different way, right? Blockchain now, you know, there's this saying, this anecdote, right, out there, that whatever the new service that you're launching or whatever the new startup that you're launching,
just add blockchain or
just
AI.
add blockchain or chain in the name, and you can raise a lot of money, or I leave alone ICOs and stuff. So in our case, we don't really think about that. We are like students, right? Okay, it's the end of, you know, we need to think about that because the rest of the world is actually using it and it actually makes sense. Let's think about that, right? But in general, we kind of, you know, it's just out there. We'll see what we can do with that in a good way once the time comes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the blockchain obviously is not the only way. We see that there's lots of use cases for the traditional banking because lots of those systems need some update, and blockchain it's one way how to do it, right? So it sort of makes sense the banks are using lots of capital to invest in there, but for us, I think it's a good case to look at because now it's really developing like, I don't know, internet in 2000. So I think it's something really interesting, but at this time, it hasn't really sort of find its space where it should deliver the maximal value, I guess, for the customer. Because now it's more of a buzzword that we see. Same applies to ICOs or cryptocurrencies, which it's all fun, but the value to the end user is, I would say, limited right now.
Like, for me personally, I think blockchain is something that is super excited. And I agree with those guys, it's a bit early, like, for people to actually understand the full also for us, I think it's a bit too early to understand the full magnitude of blockchain will actually bring to us. We just understand so far a few concepts. We understand the concept of a distributed ledger. Okay, we understood the concept of smart contracts. Okay, but if you combine those things, you can do a lot of things. And if you're on top of that, at obviously crypto, you can decrease all your operative internal costs that you have per transactions, and you can enable real-time payments, which will truly form a global economy at some point in time. So for us, this is obviously a very interesting concept, but I actually don't necessarily see blockchain. Blockchain is currently only applicable to kind of fintech and to a few other applications, but for like the mass consuming market to fully understand the magnitude of it, I think it's very early. I think for me personally, like having data privacy, making sure you can use the blockchain for anti-money laundering purposes and really making sure that we have a good fraud prevention in there, having really a traceable ledger that is distributed over like millions and millions of consumers, this is a truly powerful thing. But if you use the blockchain, and again, coming back to the topic where banking will be in 10 years, for me, it's about the identity. And if you can build a KYC solution based on the blockchain, that would really make sure that you hold one identity, you verify the ones, and you can passport this identity to any other providers. This is where the true power of blockchain comes in the banking space for me personally.
Are there any particular projects that you're excited about?
In the blockchain space?
Yeah.
Well, shall I go, or do you want to go?
No. I was at a real estate conference in the morning in Vilnius, also sitting in a panel, and there were like prop tech guys, property technology guys, 3 of them, and blockchain was mentioned in every second sentence, and but basically, as you said, right? As you said, no like real life examples where it's kind of really breakthrough, right? Where we can actually, as with Revolut, you can actually save on FX rates, right? Or send money instantly, that sort of thing.
So like, for me in the blockchain space in general, I think there are a lot of very interesting concepts and ideas around. If you just take a look at what Tesla's doing using the blockchain, I think there was a big case where there was a car accident and where people were blaming it on actually the autopilot and not really on the driver, and then they used the blockchain technology to actually look back at the records of how the autopilot was performing, and then they've seen that it wasn't the autopilot that failed, but actually the human. So this is one application where blockchain is actually super powerful. Other applications are, for me personally, in the banking sector, if I take a look at Africa, I mean, we all live in Europe, and we all live in, or like some people live in the States, we all grew up with Internet 1.0, 2.0, and so forth. In Africa, if you have an old phone that is not even a smartphone, it's not even connected to the internet, and like if you take a look at, for instance, what is happening in Kenya with M-Pesa, like the biggest peer-to-peer payment application over there, they enable you to transact money from one smartphone, from one phone to another phone, not being a smartphone. And if you take a look at all these new African developers working on new application, I think it's a big market, and the blockchain gives them the fuel and the speed that they need, because they're not reliant on any legacy systems on how we are. If I take a look at the biggest banks in Europe, all of them have banking infrastructure dated 30, 40 years ago. And of course they cannot maintain, of course they have much higher cost than a small company, let's say, in Africa that's building a peer-to-peer payment system, or a way to actually send money abroad or to receive money from abroad, having the expat use case and so forth. So I think in general, like, we shouldn't just think of blockchain and combine it with fintech or with banking in general. It has a much, much broader scope, and I think it will unlock the internet of value much more. And cryptocurrency is just one example, because it's based on information, knowledge, and like updating balance sheets and so forth.
Cool. So that's an interesting point you brought up about saying that, hey, we look to actually Kenya and M-Pesa as being a super successful P2P transfer system that has done really well for that telecom in Kenya. What about you guys? What country do you look to, either country or application do you look to for inspiration?
That's a good one. Because as with prop tech, I'm just... These guys were my inspiration in the morning. Prop tech guys look in Asia.
Yeah.
We also look in Asia, right? Because when you think about fintech, it's such an enormous amount of things that are happening there, right? Only think about WeChat, right? Those who know, 1 billion daily active users. So basically, the whole China lives within WeChat and does everything from messaging to buying cinema tickets to sending money, etc., etc. So this, for now, this really looks, those brands like WeChat, like Tencent, this really looks like, these guys look really like the inspiration, right? Because when you see what is happening with fintech in Europe, many of the players, including ourselves, try to kind of wrap up as many solutions as possible within one app, right? It kind of makes sense. We'll see how it goes, right? And that's inspiration coming from China mainly.
Can I ask you a question? So, like, and also to you, obviously. So, like, I think one of the topics of this panel is like the blurry lines between fintech and banking and so forth. And with PSD2 coming along the way and new regulations coming along the way, helping, at least in my case, helping us a lot to make sure that we have this platform where you can duck in any payment method whatsoever. Like, there's this concept of like unbundling the banks, which you started doing. So, like, you brought out a card. The card was like connected to all these different currencies and so forth. And now you're starting to rebundle the banks. So, like, where do you see the blurry line for yourself?
But in a better way, right? As with all the cases at Revolut, our users are the winners. When you look all of the things that we add on top of our core solution, right? Send, spend, and exchange, we see that all the items, for example, device insurance or travel insurance, they are twisted. They are in a sense which is at least 3 times, 5 times faster, better travel insurance, which is on-demand travel insurance. You don't need to pay it in advance. You don't need to pay it, you pay it only when you need it, right? Device insurance, which is 3 times cheaper. Cryptocurrencies, which you can trade right away without plugging into those exchanges and worrying what will happen with my crypto afterwards. So, and credit, you can get the fastest probably credit in the UK within 1 minute. You can get up to £25,000 with one of the lowest interest rates. So what we do, yes, you're right in a sense that we are adding the stuff, but we are adding the stuff which is, again, unlike banks, much more convenient, cheaper, and easier to use than the bank's product.
Yeah, well, coming back to, I guess, the inspiration, we see the social media as playing really, really big role right now. As we talked before, Facebook, for example. I mean, well, they can go in this, and they are going into this industry, which is a sort of banking on our mind, but it's becoming really a peer-to-peer thing. And they can go to Europe pretty easily right now with the PSD2, right? They can get all of the data. So basically, they don't need to have a bank to make a bank. And I think that's what is happening right now. And in 10-year period, obviously, there will be banks. They're not going to leave because they have a lot of capital, they have a lot of great minds, and so on. But there will be definitely huge changes that we will witness, I guess, really faster than 10 years.
So one thing, if I can just add up to this, shortly, like when back in the days, like I don't know, like 2.5 years ago, when I was leading the product efforts at Number 26, and again I just launched the first version, and then I left the company. But like one thing that we've seen is like the superior thing that we had And the only thing that we actually did better than any other bank was process innovation. There was actually no big innovation behind it. And it's the same thing for you. Like maybe there's a lot of innovation in the crypto space and stuff like you do, and like in insurance and like bundling all of these things in a very smart way together, you puzzle very well. Like this is out of question. But like we've seen that the only thing that we did was process innovation. So instead of opening a bank account in like 2 to 3 weeks, we allowed you to open it in like 6 to 8 minutes. That was back in the day, right? And then one thing that I've seen is that the only thing that actually made us stood apart from everybody else back in the day was the fact that we had a nice user experience and a nice user interface. But all the products that all of these challenger banks are building right now are all doing exactly what the big banks have. The big banks aren't as sexy yet, and some are like obviously adopting much faster and becoming much, much better. But for me, like the question of where this is actually leading towards is, at the end of the day, I think challenger banks and like banks in general, they will all offer similar products. I think like because there isn't much more than you can do, but the things that Revolut is doing and also adding new features on top of it and so forth. And obviously like the key difference will come in the entire user experience. But like it's a very, very blurry and fuzzy line, and it's very difficult. And this is why I say like payments and banking will become invisible, and you will choose the provider that solves the problems best for you. It could be a Revolut, it could be another banking product, another challenger bank, but at the end of the day, again, you always turn around the concept of identity. Because the identity is the one where you connect all your payment information and so forth that you can take and passport to different services and products and merchants.
All right, guys, this has been wonderful. We're almost out of time, so I know we could keep going forever. It seems like we could just keep talking on this topic. But one last question that you brought up, Lamine, which is, let's say you are the CEO of a big bank. What do you do in the face of all this disruption? What advice would you give to the CEO of a big bank?
Well, I mean, the obvious thing that they should understand is that you should be more transparent about the things that is happening in the banking in general. Because, for example, why there are challenger banks at all? Because there are some problems in banking. I mean, because, for example, transactions, payment cards, investment, all of those products are nice, but they're not that easy to understand. And the end user are sort of put in a place that they have these products and they don't have any other choices. So with fintech, what the good thing is happening that now they have the choice. They can make easy investments in TWINO, they can have a good banking experience at Revolut or at Klarna. So those things are delivered to them. So I think that CEOs should sort of watch the fintechs, learn from them, and start to develop probably some new systems, not the old ones, at the same time then the old ones are, those legacy systems are working, but they should develop the new technology as well. So,
Andrius?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I know at least 2 CEOs of different banks here in the Baltics who started to go to coding academy. They started to go and really learn coding because they want to understand what it takes, you know, what difficulties, what challenges, what limitations, what opportunities are in terms of, you know, scaling the technology part of the bank. It's really interesting. But the simple suggestion, maybe it's just a suggestion, they wouldn't treat that well, but to get to the key roles, because one of the successes of Revolut is down to the founder. Because founder wasn't exactly from banking industry. Because if he was from banking industry, he would have thought in the way which is used in the banking industry. Oh, no, we cannot do that. Oh, no, KYC cannot be done that. Oh, no, we cannot exchange money instantly, right? That would be the mentality. Because he wasn't, he challenged every single thing with our solution, right? So the quick suggestion, to fire half of the board, to get people from non-banking industry to generate ideas and then have the power and mandate to execute on that idea. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I thought for sure you would say just buy Revolut.
Yeah, and maybe if those CEOs are here, they can just grab free Revolut at the stairways after the presentation. We'll give it for free.
So for me, I would go with something that is a bit more practical. I think besides firing half of the board.
Firing half of the board is very practical.
Like, yeah, no, it is super practical. But again, it's very difficult to just say everybody just fire half of the people, because there could also be really good people in there. But in general I do understand and I agree. So one thing I would fully relate to you. I think. To begin with, like banks in general, they should shut down all their branches. The faster they shut down their branches, the better, because it will become useless and entirely obsolete. We've already seen it. The bank of the future is in your pocket. Period. Let's just set this one out. Then on top of this, what banks should really focus on is investing heavily in their engineering. And I'm not just saying just opening up a corporate venture arm and investing into these different companies. Like this is important as well, but like the underlying infrastructure and engineering and like just the engineering thinking of it, that's by far the most important. Something that I learned throughout building 4 fintech products over the last 4 years is engineering comes first, always, period. Like it doesn't matter, I'm a product manager, like I have a bunch of ideas. If I go to my engineers and they don't buy into it, they're not going to build it. If we're not going to build it because we don't have the engineering resource or the capability to do it, there's no point in even thinking of it and just losing time. So engineering always comes first. And like this is for me super important. And then the last thing is check your cohorts. You will have, as a big bank CEO whatsoever, you will have a bunch of features in your product and check what people are really using, where they're failing in the funnel, what is really important to the user. Talk with your users and make sure you really incorporate the right feedback in the product, and you focus and you have a clear strategy on how you're going to execute and actually maintain and really be also relevant in the next years. Because with all the things that are happening in the market, a lot of banks will shut down along the way, and we'll see it, even big banks. Some big banks are a bit too big to fail, let's put it like this. If you take a look at HSBC, what happened with the AML issues that they had in the past and so forth, they're just too big to fail. But it's just a matter of time until like new players and challengers actually catch up fully, and this entire area of I trust my bank, I'm not going to move to another bank, will become entirely obsolete with new regulations that come out, because it will allow all of us to take our data, all our transactions, the past history, and just move it to other products. If it's Wavy, if it's Revolut, or whatever product. So those are my few tips that I would give to
All right. Thank you, guys. Wonderful discussion. Thank you very much.